All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Samach Hey in Maseches Pesachim. We got to the top, the two dots. We were discussing the Mishnah, which was sort of a description of the afternoon of Erev Pesach in terms of the three different groups that would come in, and they would shecht, and they would all pass their bowls up with the blood and to the Kohanim, and they would go ahead and offer it. So we left off two lines from the top on Samachay Amad Aleph Yotza Kas Rishayna. So he said the first group left, then the second group came in, second group left, third group came in, and they did the same procedure. So Tana, so speaking of the third group, so we were three lines from the top. Tana he nikres Kas Aslanius. They were called the lazy group. The people who were in the third group, right? Those who go to the late minion. So it says, those people went to the third group. They were called the lazy group. I understand. We said before there's a halacha. You need three groups. So why are you going ahead and throwing shade, as they say, right? At the third group, right? The third group was why you call them lazy, right? They had to be there, right? So Gemara says no. Right? No, nevertheless, they didn't have to be the ones there. They didn't have to be the final group, right? They should have been Mazaris themselves. Yes, there had to be three groups, but each individual didn't have to be there, right? It's impossible for the world to have, right, not to have those who sell perfume because you need perfumes, and those who do tanners. However, one comes home and smells good, and the other one comes home and stinks. Ashrei Mishum Nasa Abasam, right? Happy is he whose trade is in the perfumes. He smells good. And Oilol Mishum Nasa Borsi, and woe is it to he who has to go ahead and do a tans all day. Yes, they're both necessary, but one goes home and stinks, and the other one comes home and smells good. The also it's impossible for the world not to have sons, not to have daughters. And Ashrei Misha Bon of Zacharim, and happy is he whose sons. Or whose children are sons, because he doesn't have to worry as much over his children. However, with daughters, you worry more with daughters, and therefore, woe is to those who have daughters. So yes, it's impossible for the world, even in Erev Pesach, it's impossible not to have the Kas Shlishi, the third one. However, no one said you had to be part of that one. You could have been part of an earlier one. And then we say Kamasa B'chol B'chulei. We said the same way that it was done during the week was the way that it was done on Shabbos. However, they did a couple things. One of the things they did is basically they stopped up the canal that would drain out of it, and therefore the water, or I guess it would build up, and then they would basically flush it out. And that was done shalom, and then we said that was done shalom b'ratzon shalom b'ratzon man. So who was that not? Who did not approve of such behavior in the mikdash? So Rav Chizda shalom b'ratzon Rabbi Eliezer. It was not done with the consent of Rabbi Eliezer. Did Rabban, and if there's Rabban, Hamri Shvasu, Vein Shvas b'Mikdash. Well, it's only a Shvas. It's only the Rabbanan. We'll soon see what the Rabbanan is to go ahead and basically flood these floors, and therefore, and that's only a Shvas, and there is no Shvas in the Mikdash according to the Rabbanan. But according to Eliezer, it would be problematic. So Mahi, and what was the issue? The Tanya Luna Brisa, one who goes ahead and he milks, or he makes cheese, or he presses the cheese in the size of amount of a fig, or one who's machabed, or one who sweeps, or sprinkles water, right? Covers water on the floor in order to prevent the dust, which is basically a problem of baina, because you're filling the cracks. It's only the rabbanan. Also, one who goes ahead and removes and takes out the honeycombs. The shogig b'Shabbos chayv chatas was done in shogig and Shabbos chayv chatas, and hazid b'yontif like Keser Bayim was done purposely in yontif like Keser Bayim. Divi Rabbi Eliezer. That is the opinion according to Rabbi Eliezer. The Chum say this is only a shvus. So according to the Chum, you see it's a shvus, so therefore it's not problematic. One second. Yana, can you tell me on the carpals outside? It's only according to Shvus for the Chachamim. The Chachamim say there is no problem of Shvus in the Mikdash, so obviously it has to be between Rabbi Eliezer and Rav Ashi. Amar afilu tema shelo b'ratzon Chachamim. The Rabbi even can say even the Chachamim holds only Shvus. They can say even according to them it was not done b'ratzon Chachamim. Why? Rabbi Nassan, like the opinion of Rabbi Nassan, the Tanya of the Brayso, Rabbi Nassan Aimer Shvus tzricha hitiru Shvus shein tzricha lo hitiru. That which we said that a shvus is mutter in the mikdash only if it was necessary. But however, since this was an integral part to go ahead and clean out the floors, right? Just open the door, something I know. So even though it was an integral part for them to go ahead and basically clean the floors throughout the process, therefore, that's a shvus that was not necessarily didn't have to be done. And since it didn't have to be done, therefore it should have been permitted, and that's why it was done. Shalom baratz and chachamim. And Rabbi Yehuda Omer, and then the next Mishnah mentioned they used to go ahead and take a kos, right? And they basically, take some from off the floor, from all the blood on the ground, and basically take a kos and offer and sprinkle that, because that would say that would be for all the other the psachim that do it all at once. So Tanya, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, kos midam hataruves. They used to be a cup, they would go ahead and fill it from all the mixed blood on the floor. That if, let's say, somebody had their current Pesach and their blood spilled out and it wasn't ever applied to the Mizbeach, so it says that turns out that since that was attached to the floor, that was part of the, all the on the floor, and therefore, when he took a scoop before, it represented all the blood on the floor, and he applied it. So therefore, if someone's, for whatever reason, the Gemara will soon ask, his blood wasn't applied to the Mizbeach, this would be okay. So that was according to Rabbi Yehuda. So Amar Lo Rabbi Yehuda, I understand. You have to do Kabbalah. You can't just check the animal, the blood goes on the floor, and then scoop it off the floor of the cup and apply it to the Mizbeach. That doesn't work. So So Minayadi, how do they know it wasn't done with a kli? So Elahachi Karma, this is to say Shemalun is Kabbalah kli. Perhaps it wasn't collected with a kli, and there was no Kabbalah. Samalan Afani Lo Marti Ella Beniskabel Bakli. No, I'm only talking about a case where there was miskabel b'kli, was in the kli, and then for whatever reason, it never found itself on the mizbeach. Perhaps it was spilled out afterwards, but there was kabbalas adam. So Gemara says mina yadi. So how do you know there's miskabel b'kli? So our answer is kohanim's reason, because kohanim are careful. Kohanim are careful to go ahead and make sure to catch the blood from every single korban pesach in a kli. So easy reason, amay mishtavich, right? If it was they're so careful, so why did it end up on the floor, right? So okay, because they were working so hastily, working so quickly, so therefore maybe that's some of it might have spilled on the floor and it never got to the mizbech. I understand. When you go ahead and you shech the animal, the life blood comes out first, and then the draining blood comes out, which is actually much more, right? So if you have most of the blood on the ground is draining blood, right? The blood that not the initial shechita when the life comes out of the animal, not the one that squirts out, but rather the one that goes. So therefore, most of the blood on the ground is not fit for the mizbech, because you're only supposed to use the blood that is the life blood of the animal. In Rabbi Yehuda, so Gemara answers Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda goes to shitasa damar damatansis. Dam ma'al Yehu. It is considered 100% blood. So therefore, perhaps that even though, yes, it was the draining blood was mixed with the life blood, the draining blood is no problem, because it's also according to Rabbi Yehuda, the tiny little rice, dam hatam since ba'azara. And the one who goes ahead and consumes blood that was just draining blood, not life blood, that's only with a warning, with an azara, right, with the lav and Rabbi Yehuda, right? Over there it says, no, that's the blood that one is commanded not to go ahead and have and drink blood of, right? So that is even this draining blood. So you see that even that draining blood is considered to be 100% legit blood. The Gemara says, wait. That might be real blood when it comes to consuming blood, but when it comes to applying it on the mizbeach, then that's not good enough to get kapara. You can't use that blood. You have to only use the initial life blood from the shechita. When you shech the animal, that initial blood that comes out, that's the blood you have to use. You can't use the blood that drains out afterwards. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, ki adam hu b'nefeshi chaper. It says the blood of the soul. That's what provides atonement. It's a top of page Samachem and Beis, and dam shenefeshi yotzi b'mechaper. Blood that comes out when the animal dies, when its soul departs, or it's light, right when it dies, that's what he gets kapar. So the blood that does not come out, right, during the time is not mechaper. So once again, how could you go ahead and use this blood mixed in the ground, apply to the mizbeach, and say, oh, it counts for somebody whose blood was or whose korban pesach blood was never applied to mizbeach because it accidentally spilled out? So Ella, Rabbi Yehuda Latami, Rabbi Yehuda goes, Shidasa Da'amar Ein Dam Mevatel Dam. Since they're both the same means, since they're both blood, therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda, it would not go ahead and be mevatel. It would not nullify the other blood. And since it doesn't nullify the other blood, therefore it is considered to be lifeblood in the combination, even though it's only a minority, small amount of the blood in the total blood on the floor. Nevertheless, that works to go ahead and achieve kapara, or achieve for the blood of the korban pesach to be applied to the mizbeach. Satanya Omer Len Rabbi Yehuda L'Chavim L'Divreichem Lam Paikias Hazara. So according to you guys, so why do they go ahead and plug up the ground? It was a shevach, right? It was a good thing, right, for the kohanim basically to be walking up to their ankles, right, in blood. Or as they were walking about, there was so much blood from the mitzvah, the korban pesach. It was like a big schus. Right? So Gemara says, it's a chatzitza, right? They have to be walking on the ground. If they're walking on something else, they're walking on the blood, it should be a problem. They should be walking on the floor of where the shechita was. So Gemara answers, no, lochu, right? It was since it's wet, it's hadam v'hadio v'achela v'advash. So when it comes to blood and ink and milk, right, and honey, if they're dry, then it's chatzitza, but if it's wet, then it's not a chatzitza. Therefore, since it was liquid, right? So therefore, walking on the liquid is not considered to be a chatzitza between their feet and the floor of the azara, and therefore it was no problem. But I understand. So if they're walking on blood, they're getting their clothes dirty, right? The Tanya we learn in Brisa. We learn that if the kohanim, if their clothes are dirty, then the avoda that they did is puzzle. So if they're walking up to their ankles, right, and they're getting their tunic, they're and in their pants, they're getting it all dirty. So how could you? How is that? Shouldn't their avoda be psula? So and if you say, okay, no, maybe they just rolled it up. Well, it says midovad, right? It says when they go ahead and they basically they measured every person, his big kahuna fit him perfectly. So the mother can be also right? So it says no, because over there we're talking about a case of where they went ahead and they went ahead and it fit them perfectly, right? Not too long, not too short, so they couldn't roll it up. So the Gemara answers, okay, so when did they do that? Right? When they went ahead and when they walked over the limbs to the ramp to go ahead and for it to be burnt, to bring it up on the ramp. The lava vodi, that's not considered avoda. So therefore, since they were able to roll to get dirty during that part, it wasn't during the avoda, it would be okay. And not but that's not true, because if you're talking about bringing the parts of the animal that have to be burnt on mizbeach, so and that is required to be done, it can only be done by a kohen and cannot be done by a Yisrael. That's considered to be avodah. That's an avodah. The title was in a brisa. He could have kohen asakol hamizbecha. When it says then the kohen should go ahead and offer everything on the mizbeach, the kevish. That's when you go ahead and you bring the parts of the animal to the ramp. So ella ba'alichas eitzim lemaracha. Rather talking about before when they went ahead and they brought the wood to the pyre to go ahead and bring the wood there. So the Gemara says the lavavodi, and that's not part of the avodah because that was done from before the shechita. So the Gemara says okay, ba'alechas sevarim the kevish. Okay, so even if you're talking about that, but even when the Maisa later on, when they walk the limbs over, right, they're going to be going in blood. So so it says so he said over there that no, they were walking on like little little things. So in other words, when it came time, so in the beginning, when they brought the wood to the fire, it was fine, and then later on, however, when they had to go ahead and bring the limbs right over to the mizbeach, that they walked on little like platforms or something on the ground, these stubbies, in order that they wouldn't get dirty. And Ketzad, then the Mishnah said, Ketzad told him Afshitin v'chule. So how did they go ahead? They hung them up and they cut them open and they took out the parts. And Karva Tziyu as Seimorav Naslam b'magis laktirim. Then they went ahead and they put them basically in a bowl to go ahead and burn them on the Mizbech. So Ketzad, so Atuhu Gufe. So he says over there, they would put in the bowl and they would burn them. Sounds like the Yisrael burned them. So Atuhu Gufe Havi Mektarluhu. So what? They would go ahead, the Israel would go ahead and burn them Mizbech. Aim lahaktiran for them to be burnt, i.e. by the Kohanim. Al Gabi HaMizbech al Mizbech. And Yasakas B'Shayna, when they went out, and says at the end, Tana Kol Echad V'Echad Noisid Pischa Ba'ora Umashal Acharaf. Right? Each one went ahead and they took the meat, the meat that they're going to go ahead and roast and bring back for the Korban Pesach. They would go ahead and basically wrap it in the hides of the animal. They throw it over their shoulders and they would go ahead and carry it back to where they were going. And Amarav Ilash Tayos. It says they were like Arab merchants, I guess, that carry their wares over their shoulder. So Hajj and Allah, Mazel Tov. All right.
I think a honkin'. Let's keep on trucking.
All right. My surgery. All right, fine. Now we continue on the 6th parak of Maseches Pesachim. So Elu Dvarim bePesach Deichen as a Shabbos. Now when it comes to Shabbos, Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos. So you got a little bit of problem, right? So you have karbanos that's supposed to be brought on Erev Pesach, but it's also Shabbos, and we can't push it off to the day before. So you have to be done on Shabbos. So certain malachas were permitted to be done, and certain malachas they said do not do, and certain malachas they said wait till after Shabbos once Pesach starts, and then you just finish that up. So let's see. Elu dvarim the Pesach deichen as a Shabbos. These are the things on Pesach that are on they're on Erev Pesach. Or with the Korban Pesach, that Deich is a Shabbos when Shabbos comes out on the 14th. So once again, Seder night, I think it'll be like this here, is Motzi Shabbos, and therefore you bring your Korban Pesach on that Saturday before. Now, Shchitaso, the shechting, the slaughtering of the animal, V'zrikas damo, and the throwing of its blood, Umichui krovav, and the cleaning out of the intestines to take out all the stuff that's inside it. We'll soon see why that's a malacha. V'haktaras chalava, and also the burning of the fast. None of these wait till after Pesach. None of them can be done before. Obviously, you can't work with the innards of the animal prior to the shechita. The shechita had to be done on Erev Pesach, which was Shabbos. So therefore, these parts had to be done on that Shabbos afternoon. But roasting about dachas krova and just rinsing the innards, those do not deichas Shabbos, and those are basically held off until Motzei Shabbos into Pesach. And harkavaso, to go ahead and basically carry it there, to ride it there, to carry. Now remember, we're talking about carrying a live animal. So carrying a live animal, chanas isatzmo, is only derabanan, it's not deraisa. So basically, you want to bring your animal right to the mikdash. So let's say if you're far away, you weren't there from before, and now you got to go ahead and bury it, and you carry it there. That's only derabanan. Hakaso v'havaso michutz l'tchum, or if you bring it from outside the tchum, it's also derabanan. V'chaticha sivaso, and also to go ahead and to cut the to cut a, let's say there's some sort of mum on the animal, and you want to go ahead and remove this giant wart or something. You do it with a shinui that's only a derabanan to make it kosher for the Korban Pesach. That is also only a derabanan. If you do it with shinui, ein deichen as a Shabbos. These, even though these are derabanans, they're not deichen as a Shabbos. You got to do it before, right? Don't start carrying it on Shabbos and say, I have to violate the Rabbanan because I didn't do it before. I didn't do it on Friday. You have to have it there from before Shabbos. Rabbi Eliezer, no, he says Deichen. Now we're going to have a conversation in our Mishnah. Actually, the Mishnah goes to the top of Samach Vav. We're going to get there, Mitzvah Shem. So now Rabbi Eliezer comes and argues. We're going to have svaras back and forth. So Rabbi Eliezer, he says it's Deichen. I'm Rabbi Eliezer, you can make a logical argument. But ma'im shchita she'im b'shum melacha, Deichen is Shabbos. A shchita, which is a deraisa, is Deichen Shabbos. Eilu she'in b'shum Shavuos lo yiduchos Shabbos. So these things which only the Rabbanans, should they not override Shabbos? So Rabbi Yeshua is going to be the first one to argue against Rabbi Eliezer, and soon Rabbi Kiva will sort of be his backup. So Rabbi Yeshua, all the way Rabbi Yeshua, Yom Tov Yachiach. Let Yom Tov disprove it, right? Shatiru bo mishum malacha. The Yosef mishum shavus, right? That on Yom Tov, right? That even though something which is forbidden on Yom Tov, such as shchita is not permitted on Yom Tov. Nevertheless, we permit it here, and it's aser b'shum shavus. And it's usher because of a shavus that is even though something, let's say carrying, right, is you're not allowed to go ahead and carry. There's other cases that's only a shavus. Nevertheless, that's not mutter to do on yontif. Similarly, Rabbi Eliezer, Mazeh Yeshua, I understand your raya, Rabbi Yeshua, my raya. So rishus lemitzvah, right? So he says, right? So he says to him, this is a rishus lemitzvah. Right, we're talking about a mitzvah. So over there, you're talking about a regular case, you don't permit shechita. Over here, we're talking about doing a mitzvah. So just like you can go ahead and do the shechita as a mitzvah, so too you should be able to go ahead and carry your animal to the mikdash, right, with no eruv. And Heishiv Rabbi Kiva, V'Amar, and answers Rabbi Kiva to Rabbi Eliezer. He says, no, Hazah Tachiach. Let's say the sprinkling to go ahead and make a person tahor, right? The sprinkling, right, which was done is to make a person tahor in order for him to go ahead and bring the Korban Pesach. So Hazah Tachiach, Shehi Mishum Mitzvah, V'Hi Mishum Shabbos, V'Hem Derechas Shabbos. That is is done for a mitzvah. It's not a rishus, right? It's for a mitzvah. It's the purpose of eating the Korban Pesach, right? And it's only a Shabbos, and it does not override Shabbos. So he says, Afata al titma al elu, and also you don't go ahead and ask on this al elu sha'af al pi shein mishum Shabbos v'hem mishum Shabbos lo yiduchas Shabbos. And so in this case, they're only a Shabbos. But nevertheless, even as a Shabbos for a mitzvah, it does not override the Yisur Shabbos. So Amarillo Rabbi Eliezer ve'aleh ani don. He says, actually, that exact point, I argue with you, right? In other words, I don't say that the hazah is asur, rather hazah is mutter, right? Because if shechita, which needs to be done for a mitzvah, i.e. the Korban Pesach, is a malach, as the Dorai sends Doicha Shabbos, so hazah, so sprinkling, to make a person tahor on, right, is only a derabanan. So hazah shi mishum shavos ein adin shedoicha Shabbos. Certainly, since it's a mitzvah, it should be Doicha Shabbos. So you use that as your proof, Rabbi Kiva, to say that, hey, well, that you're not allowed to do it, and even though it's only derabanan and it's a mitzvah, still can't do it. So you can't do it from before. But over here, right, we'll say that it is deiches, according to Rabbi Eliezer, the sprinkling to go ahead and be matayar person is deicha Shabbos, to do it on Erev Pesach in order for a person to be able to eat the Korban Pesach. So top of the page. So Amar Lo, Rabbi Kiva, O Chaluf. So he says, I switch around. Ma'im hazah shehui mishum shavus and deiches Shabbos. So you know what? Even according to my logic, I can take it one step further. Sprinkling, which is only a shavus and it's done for a mitzvah, ein deiches Shabbos. It's a shechita shehi mishum malacha. Ein adin sheli deiches Shabbos. Then shechita, which is for the mitzvah of Korban Pesach, maybe that should be deiches Shabbos. So Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says, I Akiva, right? Akarta mashikasa b'Torah, right? You just uprooted that which what the Torah says. It says go ahead and offer the Korban Pesach, right? In its time, whether it's a weekday or it's Shabbos. So you can't bring that logic against me and say, well, if you can't go ahead and violate the rabbanan for a mitzvah, i.e. to be a matayar person, you can't do a deraisa, right? Such as shechita. Samalo, Rebbe haveli moed leelu kamoed l'shechita. He said, you know what? He says, give me a time. If the Torah says you have to do it in a certain time, then it overrides it. If it doesn't give me a certain time, it doesn't override it. In other words, by shechita, it tells you have to do it the 14th. So therefore, it overrides. But to go ahead and be matayar a person, it doesn't say anywhere, be matayar a person on the 14th. So he can go ahead and do it. Be matayar a person on the 13th. And if it's too late, 14th, that's too bad. You can't do it on Shabbos, right? But it doesn't say always be matayar person on the 14th of Nisan. So therefore, it doesn't override Shabbos. And therefore, Klal Omer Rabbi Kiva says general rule, Kol malacha she'efshar la'asosem erev Shabbos, eina deicha as a Shabbos. Anything which is possibly done from erev Shabbos is not deicha as a Shabbos. However, shechita, but the shechita, she'efshar la'asosem erev Shabbos, but the shechita, which you can't do before, you can't prepare for, then deicha as a Shabbos, that would be deicha as Shabbos. and therefore that's the reason why shechita can be derech Shabbos, but carrying and coming from outside the tchum, and those other, even those only derabbanans, those do not override the Shabbos in order to go ahead and help prepare for your Korban Pesach. So you have to do those preparations from before. All right, we'll stop here. Everyone have a wonderful day, and tomorrow with Hashem we will continue from here. Shkayach.
Yoel,
Shayach. Thank you.
6:30 tonight.